Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you're all having a great weekend. We are here live on To The Point on this Monday. As I said, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. It's 2024, yada, yada, yada. All that fun stuff. We have a lot to get to today. Interesting sports weekend. Week 17 in the NFL, World Junior Hockey Championships, a trade in the NBA, a shakeup in the Ottawa Senators brass. The Maple Leafs send down the goaltender who won a playoff series for them last year. The Winnipeg Jets might be the most consistent team in the NHL. I mean, it's a lot happening in the world of sports, and we're going to get to most of that today. Doing the pod today, tomorrow night after work, we will recap the World Junior quarterfinal games. We will do that. Canada plays at 9:30 a.m. in the second quarterfinal. Slovakia and Finland, 7 a.m. Canada, Czechia, 9:30. United States, Latvia at noon and at 2:30, which is prime time in Sweden. The host Swedes and Switzerland will play. So those are the four games tomorrow. We'll recap them. We'll also recap tomorrow the college football playoff semifinals, which are happening this evening into tonight. 6 o'clock, we got Alabama and Michigan and the 1-4 matchup at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. And then 9:45 kickoff, it is Texas, Washington, and that game is taking place at the Superdome in New Orleans. We also got bowl games this afternoon, so we got lots happening today. I also got the outdoor game in the NHL, which is happening in Seattle and Vegas. So that's cool, I suppose. It's actually cooler it's happening in Seattle. I like Seattle. So that's all happening today. We'll recap that tomorrow on the show. But today, where do we start? So much happened, so many interesting things. The NFL had themselves an interesting weekend in a multitude of ways. Because numerous things happen. We have two teams lock up number one seeds. We had, the Bills win a game where they didn't look impressive again. They didn't cover a spread. Who could have seen that coming? Me. And yet, they might be the 2 seed. They could still miss the playoffs. Lots of craziness there. Cardinals rally over the Eagles. Who could see them covering the spread? I had a good weekend. If you can't deduce that from the beginning, that my picks on Friday, yeah, they're pretty good, pretty chalk. But it's not about me. Never is. But the biggest thing for me is video replay in sports. And the thought is, we need video replay because you need to get the call right. It's the right thing to do. We can't have these mistakes on the field. And then we get to Saturday night. Dallas, Detroit. Primetime on the mothership. It was a phenomenal game. Best game of the weekend for me by far. Not close. Steelers Seahawks was fun, but this game was funner. What didn't happen in this game? We had Detroit going for it on 4th down on a special teams play inside their own 35. You had Dallas's defense get a big interception. You had Dak Prescott throwing a horrible interception. Dallas up 7-3 at halftime, and yet you're watching the game going, these two teams are the threats in the NFC? Both defenses playing well, getting to the opposing quarterback. Aiden Hutchinson has 6 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks. Micah Parson has himself a good game. CeeDee Lamb breaks a Cowboys record. 12 catches, 230 yards. He's having an incredible season. That'll put him in contention for Offensive Player of the Year. But through all of that, we get to the end of the game. Goff picked off before the 2-minute warning. We see him both times he throws interception. And he misses throws. Throwing wide, they're short, they're intercepted. And you're thinking, okay, Dallas got the interception, they're going to get a first down, run the clock out, they win the game. But they don't. Dallas settles for a field goal. Detroit gets the ball back. Jared Goff did not have a great game prior to this, as I talked about. Wasn't having great yardage, wasn't impressive. But it's something else to see these defenses in the NFL play prevent, allow pass after pass, chunk yards after chunk yards, and every team does it. It's so perplexing to me. I get it. You don't want to let somebody beat you over the top, but just have some safety help over the top. Play them man to man, but you want to give up yardage after yardage. 15, getting out of bounds. They have all their timeouts. So Detroit, with 45 seconds, are inside the Dallas 20. With timeouts remaining, and they spike the ball twice on the drive. To me, that is just, it can't happen. And yet it continues to happen. And wouldn't you know it, Detroit gets a touchdown. Touchdown to our man St. Brown, and now it's a 1-point ball game. And to me, it was simple. You go for 2. You go for the win because I play to win the game. I'm not going to overtime. I'm not hoping for a coin flip. I'm trying to win the game. I don't disagree with Dan Campbell. So they go for it, penalty. Another play, this time, Dallas penalty. So it's reset back to the original play, and when you know it, they hit Taylor Decker, an offensive lineman, a big man touchdown in the back of the end zone. And it's a great play. It's perfect. He was wide open. Dallas was not ready. This is going to win Detroit the game. Problem: Taylor Decker did not report as eligible, or so we thought. And that means penalty on the Lions, illegal touching, plays called back, 2-point conversion is no good. Dan Campbell's pissed. Decker's pissed. Dan Skipper, who also came on the play as an extra offensive lineman, is furious. We see video of Decker going over to Brad Allen on the play, talking to him, which one would assume he told him, I'm reporting as eligible, because that's something you have to do. You have to tell the official that you are reporting as an eligible receiver. If you do not report as an eligible receiver, you are viewed, you're not allowed to touch the ball. And it's a simple, and I apologize for the I'm kind of breaking up here. I'm getting a lot of comments today that are really off color and off choice in my comment section that are really uncalled for. So I apologize if I sound a little aloof, but just had to block somebody that was really inappropriate things said about me. And I'm not a snowflake here, but I didn't appreciate it. So that's why I'm a bit staggering here. So I apologize for that. But now that that's done, he went and talked to the referee. And he said he reported as eligible. Brad Allen, the official, who will not be working in the playoffs, reported by Mike Florio yesterday, said he did not. So it's one person's word against another. You can't go to video replay because it's not a reviewable play because it has to be said face to face. I don't see why he would go talk to the referee if he was not reporting as an eligible receiver because there's no point. Just go line up, run the play. He knows going onto that field, they're calling this play. He knows what he has to do. He knows his job that he needs to tell the official. That's all he has to do. The ball might not go to him. He just needs to be prepared if the ball is thrown to Taylor Decker, which it was. So does this one play screw the Lions? I never agree when it's said, well, that play they got hosed or this happened, the officials screwed them. I think that's a lazy narrative. I think that's a loser's mentality. Because I learned growing up from playing sports, coaches, family members, you got to play hard the entire game and make it happen. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way. Sometimes you didn't do something in the first quarter and it's going to kill you in the second. And I think that's kind of what happened here. To me, Dallas could have had other chances. Don't throw 2 interceptions. Make better decisions. Don't fumble. And should this have counted? Absolutely. And it's a break for the Cowboys. And people will say, well, it's the Cowboys. They got the break because the NFL loves the Cowboys, which they do. There's no denying that. The Cowboys are America's team. The Cowboys are the Cowboys. They're the cream of the crop. They rule the city. All of that is true. But was the call not made because it was a Cowboys against the Lions? No. The call was not made because Brad Allen, to me, didn't do his job. I don't think he wanted to own up to the fact that he made a mistake. And he's no different than most people. It's very hard to say I'm sorry. I didn't like saying it when I was younger. Kind of growing up, I've learned that I make lots of mistakes. I have the temperament of a person that, I can lose my handle sometimes and I need to apologize for it. So you learn through it. But he's an NFL official. He knows damn well if he admits he made a mistake, he's not refereeing in the playoffs, which is money, revenue, opportunity. And he's still not going to be able to officiate the playoff game because he made a mistake and it's glaring. But we don't know the conversation. NFL Films hasn't picked it up. If they did have it picked up and Brad Allen heard from Taylor Decker that he reported as eligible, he shouldn't officiate again. Or he should be, given some time off because it was a clear mistake and you didn't own up to it. It's like, you're a kid and you get asked, did you do this? If you say no, and then they know that you did it and you have the chance to own up to it and you still deny it, well, I think you should be punished harsher than if you owned up to it the first time. Because owning up to it when people have the evidence in front of you, that's not owning up to something. That's just acknowledging the fact. You have nowhere to go. You're pinned in a corner and you have to look around and go, oh shit, they know what I did here. So yeah, I did it. Sorry, my bad. this makes it even more interesting because then we get to Sunday. So the Cowboys win this game, and you're thinking, well, it's kind of a big deal for the Lions because the Lions could potentially get the number 1 seed. They could be the number 2 seed. What's going to happen? But then Cowboys get the win, Lions lose. And the Eagles, who have been sputtering for a while now, barely beat the Giants on Christmas Day, are at home against the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals have nothing to play for but a draft pick. Jonathan Gannon, former defensive coordinator of the Eagles, back playing his former team. And Kyler Murray, at the end of the game, leads a game-winning touchdown drive with the help of James Conner. And the Cardinals beat the Eagles, knocking the Eagles out of the 2nd seed in the NFC and out of the lead in their own division, which now gives the Cowboys the inside track to win the NFC East and to be guaranteed 2 home playoff games where they play their best football. And not to mention, they're in a position now where they will not have to play San Francisco until the NFC Championship game. The weekend couldn't have gone any better from the Dallas Cowboys. Plus, all they need to do is beat the Commanders. The Commanders are a joke. They're sputtering. They can't wait till next Monday to fire Ron Rivera, fire that staff, so they can pick new head coaches and move in a different direction. So the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East. The Cowboys are going to be the number 2 seed in the NFC, whether they deserve it or not. Despite the fact that they lost to the Cowboys and lost to the Bills and should have lost to the Detroit Lions. Them's the breaks. They caught a break. And it happens to teams. It's not just Dallas, you catch a break. You're telling me the Buffalo Bills didn't catch a break yesterday playing against the Patriots? If Bailey Zappi knew what the quarterback position was in the first quarter, Patriots win that game in Orchard Park. Some things just happened at the right time. Dallas is a good team. The NFC is littered with bad teams. To me, Dallas, despite the fact that they had a tough time against Detroit, is as good as any of them. Can they give San Francisco a run for their money? Yes. When Dallas is playing their best football, to me, they're the 2nd best team in the NFC. They're better than the Eagles. They're better than Detroit. They're better than any team in the NFC South. And there's no wildcard team, including the Rams, who I wouldn't want to play. I don't see them being better than. And not to mention, you likely get a Seahawks, who they've beaten this year, or the Packers in a wildcard game in a dome. You don't have to go outside. You have all the, cozy confines. You'll be a heavy favorite going into that game. But Dallas caught a break. They made it work. And now they control their own destiny, and they will do that next weekend. It's horrible for Detroit. This doesn't sound like a big deal going from 2 to 6. But it is, because 2 home playoff games instead of 1. It's now the Lions are the 3rd seed. They'd have to play the Rams, which I don't think anybody wants to do, despite the fact that the Rams nearly lost to the Giants yesterday. And the Rams punched their ticket to the playoffs, and I did not see that coming. Credit to Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and Kyron Williams, who's a beast, who had 3 rushing touchdowns yesterday. Puka Nacua, an incredible rookie season. I didn't have them making the playoffs on my bingo card. I didn't see them being this competitive, this good, such a young team. But they've punched their ticket, and they just got to wait now. They're likely going to be that 6th seed. They're likely going to play the Lions. That means Jared Goff against Matthew Stafford. Stafford playing his former team in Ford Field in the playoffs. Love it. Would I rather play the Rams or the Packers? I'd rather play the Packers. And I'd rather play the Cowboys, potentially, on a home field. Because it's more beneficial to you. Your crowd, everything that goes into it. To me, football is one sport where home field matters. The crowd, everything that goes into it, it should. Hasn't for the Eagles this year. But for the most part, Dallas, you look at their splits, home and road, it's crazy. The Dolphins, road, home splits, crazy. They look like different football teams. They look like a team that you don't even know who they are when they go on the road. You're at home, you're a competent team. You can beat and you can hang in with anybody. It's a big deal. And Brad Allen and his staff screwed it up for the Detroit Lions. And if that Dan Campbell, I'd be pissed off. But I think he knows this. You have to move on too. Because you have one game left against Minnesota next week. If I'm Dan Campbell and I'm the Lions, I'm not playing Jared Goff for my starters because there's no reason to. You're going to be playing a wild card game the next week. That's when the playoff starts. That's when it matters. Rest up. Prepare for that. Get through the Minnesota game. Teddy Bridgewater said he's going to retire after the season. Give him his last game. Give him his moment. And then start preparing for likely the Rams, which will be a tricky opponent for a secondary that hasn't exactly played great football over the last number of weeks, including letting CeeDee Lamb completely torch them, including a play for a 92-yard touchdown. But Dak's been great. CeeDee Lamb's been great. Dallas, they're still a dangerous team. CeeDee Lamb might finish the season with the most receiving yards in the NFL. He's 70 yards back of Tyreek Hill. At one point, it looked like nobody was going to catch Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill has 1,717 yards. CeeDee Lamb at 1,651. He's had that kind of an impact. Not to mention he's got 10 receiving touchdowns. Hell of a year. Dak Prescott's got the 4th most passing yards, and he leads the NFL in passing touchdowns. So a lot of these Cowboys guys have had really good seasons. 32 touchdowns, 8 picks for Dakota Rain Prescott. Did they deserve to win this game? No. But they caught a break, and they're going to use it to their advantage. It happens. But I also think the NFL is doing the right thing, telling Brad Allen and his staff, you're not refereeing playoff games because of this incident. Punishment fits the crime. Game of the weekend, labeled game of the weekend, Miami-Baltimore. This is one game I got wrong. I thought this could be a close game. I thought the Dolphins were going to cover the spread. Was not close, was not competitive, was over from halftime. And a couple things happened. Baltimore locked up the number 1 seed. Baltimore continues to beat good teams, home or on the road. And Lamar Jackson wrapped up his 2nd MVP award of his career yesterday. There's no debate. There's no question. And the first time he won, he was unanimous MVP. I wouldn't be surprised if he's unanimous again. I love this story because I remember watching Lamar at Louisville, and I'm like, this guy's so fun to watch. He can do it all. Then you see Josh Allen, who hasn't won an MVP, although the media wants him to win one so badly, but he's going to go another season without one. Sam Darnold, backup quarterback with San Francisco. Go through that. Baker, my guy, I do love Baker, but again, he's fighting it off. Hasn't exactly been an MVP quarterback, but Josh Rosen, who's not in the league. And then there's Lamar, who's taken 32nd over, last pick of the first round by the Baltimore Ravens. 2 MVP awards, multiple playoff wins, and I'm projecting the MVP, but he's going to win it. So I'm just going to throw it in. Second MVP award. For a guy that many scouts, Bill Polian, the genius, told Lamar Jackson, you should go play wide receiver. Oh, that's funny. How far we've come. It's like that Dr. Seuss book, All the Places You'll Go, or All the Places We'll Go. I forget what it's called. I haven't read it. But how far we've come where having athletic ability as a quarterback was a detriment. And that's honestly the truth. It was something that was held against you. He's a better runner than a thrower. Is he? Or can he just do both? Well, I don't know if he's smart enough to play. Oh, that was a good one. That was always a good one. Well, he's a little too Robert Griffin III, is he? Well, he doesn't take big hits like Robert. He kind of gets down before he takes the hit. He throws a great deep ball. Yeah, well, he's kind of he'll only win one MVP. It's a fluke. Well, he's going to win his second. How about this game yesterday for Lamar? 18 for 21, 321, 5 touchdowns. And a 158.3 quarterback rating, which is a perfect quarterback rating for the day. And he ran 6 times for 35 yards for a 5.8 average. So, yeah, he does have legs that are competent. So, he does have – they were right. He can run. Lamar Jackson's so special. I love watching him play. He's one of the best quarterbacks of the last 20 years. We hear about the great quarterbacks of yesteryear, from Marino, Favre, John Elway. Lamar Jackson still has a ways to go, of course. He needs to win a Super Bowl to be put in that conversation and all this, that, and the third. To me, Lamar Jackson's already a better quarterback and has had a better career than Brett Favre. And I don't like Brett Favre. I'll admit that from the beginning. I think the dude's a bit of a scumbag, but that's a whole other story for another day. But 2 MVPs, and I think there'll be 2 unanimous MVPs. 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. 821 rushing yards this season, 5 touchdowns. 5.6 yards per rush. Not bad. And 821 rushing yards on 148 attempts. Not to mention that they've had a revolving door of running backs. Melvin Gordon got carries yesterday. Justice Hill is their go-to guy. Him and OBJ have reconnected. They have a connection. OBJ only had 1 catch yesterday, but it was a big catch down the field. He loses his security blanket, Mark Andrews, for the season. You think, okay, this is it for Lamar. No Mark Andrews. He needs him. But then they draft Zay Flowers, which is a great draft pick because he's phenomenal. Rashad Bateman saw Isaiah Likely out of Coastal Carolina. How about this kid? You lose Mark Andrews, he shows up. He wasn't getting a whole lot of targets early in the season, but since he's got 28 receptions for 380 yards, 4 touchdowns, including 2 touchdowns yesterday on 2 receptions. They know what they're doing in Baltimore. They lose defensive players. And yet they find ways to overcome it. And Baltimore built around Lamar Jackson. They didn't try to, because Joe Flacco was there originally, and they didn't try to say, Lamar, play Joe Flacco's offense, because that's not going to work. You need to be creative. It can't just be, we can't have this player because he's different than what we have. That's what makes him special. That's what makes him different. Go find somebody else. Go build an offense, because he's got a different skill set than the guy that you have right now. I think that's part of the reason nobody liked him, nobody wanted him, because it took creativity. It took work. It's easy when you have a stationary quarterback goes, we can just run the same offense, come in and play it. Lamar's off script. Lamar's a comedian who's fantastic at improv. He's Steve Carell, where you can just you can say something and he'll take you somewhere completely different, and it's brilliant. Because he just goes, this is what we need. I'm going to go do this. And to me, he's been in Baltimore. Teams like Atlanta, teams like Chicago, teams had all offseason where he was a restricted free agent, or they could have given an offer sheet. You might say, Baltimore would have matched it. Okay, but nobody tried. Atlanta wanted to stick with Desmond Ridder, who was benched 3 times this year. How's that working out? Chicago, I like Justin Fields. We're going to talk about him in a minute. But is Lamar Jackson better than Justin Fields? Yeah. The Saints, let's go get Derek Carr instead of Lamar Jackson. Well, I'd rather have Lamar, personally. It's not a hard decision. I mean, goddamn, he's the best quarterback in the sport this season. The Giants signed Danny Dimes long-term. That was a good call. Carolina says, let's trade up and draft Bryce Young instead of potentially going to get Lamar Jackson. I don't know. Something to think about for sure, that all those teams, and if the pushback on this idea is, it's an offer sheet, they would have matched it. Who says? Then why even have an offer sheet available? Give them a contract that they won't match. Because it took a while for the contract to come together, because I don't think Baltimore is really keen on bringing him back. And yet they do. They're the number 1 seed in the AFC. He's going to win the MVP. And the AFC playoffs runs through Baltimore. So whether it's Miami or Kansas City or Buffalo, they have to go to Maryland, beat the Ravens to get to the Super Bowl. That's their advantage. And they look pretty damn good at home yesterday. But the Dolphins, Vic Fangio had no answer. Wheel routes to Justice Hill. He was given 5-10 yards of space. Big play after big play. His throw to OBJ down the field was a beauty. Zay Flowers, I mentioned, a rookie out of Boston College. Was a great draft pick. He had another 100-yard game yesterday. He got 77 receptions for 858 yards, 5 touchdowns as a rookie. Impressive. And only 4 drops on 108 targets. Damn good season for him. But the Ravens are impressive. Now they got a game Saturday. I don't think they're going to play their starters. Then they'll have a bye week. Sit back and watch. And prepare for their next opponent. Miami got punched in the mouth like they normally do in big games and had no answer. Giving up 56 points, Tua throwing two interceptions. He hurts his shoulder, sacked 3 times. It was not good. Not good. Devon Chain was the only good part of the game. He had 14 carries for 107 yards. That's 7.6 yards per carry. Crazy. And he had 4 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown. So he had that going for him. But their defense got bullied, and the Dolphins are, unlike the Cowboys, who caught a break and are kind of maybe peaking at the right time, if you will. The Dolphins are not. This year, Jalen Phillips blows out his Achilles. One would argue their best pass rusher. He's out for the year, but they're okay. We got Van Ginkel. We have guys who can recover. Then they lose Connor Williams, their center, torn ACL. He's done for the season. Tyreek Hill injures his ankle. He's been playing, but I don't know if he's been as good since he hurt his ankle. So there's that. Jalen Waddle, high ankle sprain. Not an easy injury to come back from. Did not play yesterday. He's injured. In the game, Lane Eichenberg, offensive lineman. He's hurt. Did not return. Questionable to play this coming weekend. Who knows? Xavier Howard, their number 2 corner, leaves the game in the second quarter. He's had a long, series of injuries. He's older, getting older, more injury prone, more things happening to him. So who knows how he's going to feel going into next weekend's game. And then here's the real tough one. Fourth quarter, the game's fucking over. Don't know why Tua and them are still playing. Don't know why they have starters on the field. Bradley Chubb takes the corner and he grabs his knee and goes down. He should not have been on the field. It should not have been a time for Bradley Chubb to be rushing the passer because the game was over. And it sounds like he has a torn ACL and is done for the season. So your top 2 pass rushers, done for the season. Your number 2 wide receiver has a high ankle sprain. Your number 1 wide receiver has an ankle injury. Your number 2 corner is banged up, and 2/5 of your offensive line may not be available for you moving forward. And Teron Armstead is always a question mark going into every game. So it's bad news for the Dolphins. They've already clinched a playoff spot, so they have that going for them. But here's the deal. They got to play the Buffalo Bills next Sunday night, prime time, NBC. And the early line for that game, it's in Miami. The Bills are the favorite. It's Bills -3 right now on the road in Miami. The Bills win that game, the number 2 seed. The Dolphins win that game, the number 2 seed. I'm concerned about the Dolphins. You're going to get into the playoffs, but you're going to lose this game to Baltimore. Pardon me. So lose this game to Buffalo, then get into the playoffs, and possibly behind the Cleveland Browns in the standings, and have to either go to Buffalo or go to Kansas City in their first playoff game. Neither option's great. They went to Buffalo last year. They lost that game. Played Kansas City earlier in the year in Germany. Lost that game. So, I mean, you'd love to play the Jacksonville potentially in the AFC South. But I don't think Cleveland's going to lose against Cincinnati this week. Cleveland's, they're on a run here. So, if I'm a Dolphins fan, I am very nervous. because you're having this great season, magic carpet. You're going to win your division for the first time in a very long time. And Buffalo might yank it from you in the last possible weekend. Steal it from you. Then you might have to either go play them in a playoff game again the next week in Buffalo, or go to Kansas City. And you're not a division winner, and you don't get a wild card team. Because Buffalo, here's what happens with Buffalo. If they don't beat the Dolphins, they need some help. Because if the Bills lose to the Dolphins on Sunday, and Colts and Texans are playing each other, one of them's going to win. The winner of them gets in. If the Steelers beat the Ravens, who will likely be playing backups, the Steelers win that game, they'll be 10-7. If the Bills lose to the Dolphins, they'll be 10-7. Steelers win that tiebreaker. Steelers are in, and the Bills miss the playoffs altogether. They win the 2 seed, they lose, they could potentially be missing the playoffs. It's an all or nothing game potentially for the Buffalo Bills. And for the Dolphins, you could look up and go, holy shit, we're 12-5. We won the AFC East, and we might get the Pittsburgh Steelers at home in our first playoff game. That is a much more favorable matchup. You'll take that every day of the week. You'd rather have, or potentially play the Colts in a playoff game at home with Gardner Minshew. Again, you take that. That's a better alternative. You're much more likely to win that game. If they go to Buffalo, they're not going to win it. They lost by 30 early in the year. They're losing players by the week. I think the season's changed for the Dolphins, where you might go, could this team get to the Super Bowl? Do they have those aspirations? Can they have that kind of season? I think that's dead. They can't overcome this number of injuries. They don't have the depth of pass rushers for their defense. They gave up 56 yesterday. Can you win a playoff game this year? They got to the playoffs last year and they lost. So that means they did not win a playoff game. If you won a playoff game this year, that's progress. Tua had a pretty good year. Tyreek will have over 1,800 yards receiving again. You've built, Mike McDaniel's a great coach. You're building something. Waddle, Tyreek signed. Hopefully Jalen Phillips can come back from his torn Achilles. But you've seen improvement year over year. If you make the playoffs and you lose the first round again, you're kind of stuck in the mud. You are who you are. You're a playoff team, but you're no threat. You get there and you lose the playoff game. If they play the Steelers or the Colts at home, they will be the favorite going into that game, and I think they very well could win that game. If they go to Kansas City, despite the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs I do not trust whatsoever, and the Bills have so many flaws, and the Bills will likely be a big favorite going into that game, and I'll take the Dolphins plus the points. I don't think they'll win it. They'll cover the spread, which is all I care about. But do I think they'll win that game? I don't. I was watching 2.5 Men the other day. And I love that show. I've been watching more of it lately. I watched it as a kid, and it's funny. And Jake, the little kid, comes in. And he asks Charlie, who are we rooting for in this game? And Charlie goes, the spread. And it stuck with me because it's such an easier way to watch sports, just to root for the spread, not to root for a team. And I was rooting for the spread yesterday, and I needed the Packers to help me out after the Panthers and Jaguars game did not help my parlay. But when you're desperate, you throw in a Packers bet late, and that helps you. But that's just made me think of that, where you can look at it and go, who's going to win this game? And you think, well, I don't know, but I think I know who will cover the spread. And that's how I look at it now. Like, I got some things wrong. Like, I took Miami yesterday. That was wrong. I took Tampa against New Orleans. New Orleans crushed the Bucks. Now, both of those teams are 8-8. The Buccaneers, they wrap up their season at Carolina, and the Saints are hosting the Falcons. So if the Bucs win their last game, they will win the NFC South. They're in the playoffs. The Saints are not out of it, however, because they have a few other ways. If they win the game, a couple teams lose, they make the playoffs, even if they don't win their own division. So still something to be decided there. Derek Carr had his best game of his season yesterday. And, NFC South is a tough watch sometimes, but I'm watching some of that Falcons-Bears game. And, of course, my guy Taylor Heineke did not have a great day. And Desmond Ridder gets put back in after being benched 3 times, and he throws an interception with only 4 attempts. And Kyle Pitts had another game with only 1 catch. I mean, it's just something what they do in Atlanta. But I'm watching Justin Fields, who's had a great end to his season, in my opinion. 20 for 32, 268 yesterday and a touchdown. DJ Moore had 9 receptions for $159. Herbert ran 18 for $124. Fields 11 carries for 45 yards and a rushing touchdown. They had a great game. Put up 37. He's looked fantastic. Leaving the game, because with the Panthers' loss, it guaranteed that the Bears are going to be on the clock with the number 1 overall pick for the second straight year. Because Carolina traded up for Bryce Young, now Chicago has the pick. It's locked in with the Cardinals winning yesterday. My thought leaving that game was, well, Justin Fields is going to look really good next year in a Falcons uniform. It's an early prediction. Falcons are not making the playoffs. Falcons, in my mind, are going to fire Arthur Smith. Chicago is going to take Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick, quarterback out of USC. After that selection, they're not going to need Justin Fields. He'll be an attractive piece for many teams. They can get more draft capital. They can improve their team. I think Atlanta should want Justin Fields. Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke are not the answers. Justin Fields can be a starting quarterback for an NFL team. He can be productive. Go to Atlanta, play with Drake London, play with Kyle Pitts, play with Bijan Robinson. That offense, bring in a new head coach with an offensive mind. Maybe Ben Johnson from Detroit. Would he go to Atlanta, work with Justin Fields? Intriguing option, but that's an early 2024 prediction. I believe Justin Fields will be the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons next season. There's a lot of teams who I think should want Justin Fields, but I think Atlanta is an intriguing option with the weapons and their desperate need for a quarterback. But he played great again yesterday. They're now 7-9, and they're technically not out of the playoffs yet either, so the Bears are still in the mix. Let's see, AFC South, Houston, Jacksonville, and Indianapolis all win, all really dominate their opponents. Jacksonville shuts out the Panthers. Houston wins 26-3, and C.J. Stroud's return, and Indy beats the Colts. Here's how this works. Saturday night, prime time on the mothership, Houston will play Indianapolis. The winner of that game is guaranteed a playoff spot. Houston wins, they're in. Indy wins, they're in. However, if Jacksonville loses to Tennessee on Sunday, not only will Houston and Indy be guaranteed a playoff spot, they will win their division. They will win the AFC South. I don't think Jacksonville will lose to Tennessee, but you never know. CJ Beathard got the start for Jacksonville yesterday because Trevor Lawrence was unable to go for the first time in his career. We'll see if he's ready to go this weekend for the season finale. Indy and Houston, they battled all season long to be 9-7. Gardner Minshew's been a stable quarterback for Indianapolis. Ran the offense, 23-20 win yesterday. Didn't turn the ball over. It's the most important thing for him. Jonathan Taylor ran for 100 yards. Trey Sermon, couple carries. Alec Pierce, 1 catch, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Colts, Texans in Indianapolis next Saturday night. Steelers-Ravens is before that game. Steelers, huge win yesterday in Seattle. With the win by Pittsburgh, it guarantees that Mike Tomlin will have another winning season. 17 straight years with an over 500 record, which is incredible. This year, even more, because you go through the Trubisky stuff, you fire Matt Canada, bench Trubisky to go to Mason Rudolph. He's already been confirmed as the starter next Saturday. I was talking about Tomlin being on the hot seat. I overreacted. I love Mike Tomlin. It's not go win in Seattle. They stuck to the game plan. Mason Rudolph, 18 for 24, 274. Good game. No turnovers. And Najee Harris, 27 carries, $122, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Jalen Warren, 13 for 75, and a touchdown on the ground. George Pickens, 7 receptions for $131. Deontay Johnson, 4 for 76. Stuck to the game plan, knew what they were doing. Seattle could not stop the run, and Pittsburgh took advantage of it. They're guaranteed. The worst they can be is 9-8. If they win the game Saturday afternoon, they need help. They need Buffalo to lose. But Pittsburgh could still be a playoff team this year after everything that's happened and all the talk and all the controversy. They could still be in that mix. And my question is, why the hell was Mason Rudolph not starting earlier? He's looked great. He's running the offense. He's doing it effectively. He's as good or better than Kenny Pickett, in my mind. Because he can make throws down the field. Here's some news. Adam Schefter, Dolphins standout linebacker Bradley Chubb did in fact tear his ACL per source. Chubb was hurt with 3 minutes left in Sunday's game when Miami trailed by 30. Miami now will be without Chubb and Jalen Phillips towards Achilles versus the Jets the day after Thanksgiving, which would also be Black Friday. Adam. Again, 3 minutes left. Why is he in the game? Why is he in the game? Stupid. But again, that's the Dolphins for you, playing hard until the final whistle. It's like Mario Cristobal got control of Mike McDaniel yesterday, still have him in the game, but see, Broncos beat the Chargers yesterday 16-9 in a game nobody watched. Chiefs beat the Bengals. Bengals eliminated from playoff contention. They were my pick to get to the Super Bowl. Wrong, no Joe Burrow. Chiefs lock up the AFC West for the 8th straight year. Despite the fact all the things have gone wrong for that team this year, they do win another division title, so kudos to them. They'll be playing in Wild Card Weekend, which they're not accustomed to. They wrap up their season next week at the Chargers. I don't expect to see Patrick Mahomes in that game, but I could be wrong. Anything else? 49ers beat the Commanders. 49ers lock up the number 1 seed in the NFC. Brock Purdy was pretty damn good again. He might be the runner-up for the MVP. McCaffrey. They didn't give McCaffrey the ball all that much yesterday, which was good. They gave Elijah Mitchell at 17 carries for 80 yards. Deebo Samuel had 3 carries. They're playing a bad team. You're going to lock up the number 1 seed. You don't want anybody to be injured. Kittle didn't have a whole lot of receptions. Deebo only had 5. You get through the game. You win it in Washington. You're the number 1 seed. You can rest guys next weekend. You get a bye week. And then you'll prepare for the lowest seed remaining, and you'll play them in divisional weekend in San Francisco. They need to have a lead. They are front runners through and through. They need to have a lead. When they play with a lead, they're dangerous because they can do anything on the field. If they get behind, they're not a great team. Mike Lombardi, who's a smart NFL mind, has pointed this out many times. They have a lead, they can beat anybody. If they do not have a lead, you kind of worry about them. And the final game of the day was Packers crushing the Vikings in Minnesota. With Seattle losing, Packers winning. Packers are now in the 7th seed. They're the final wild card team. If the Packers can beat the Bears next weekend, they are going to the playoffs. They will be the 7th seed. Likely play the Cowboys wild card weekend. But Jordan Love has showed out. Last night, 24 for 33, 256, and 3 touchdowns. Two touchdowns to rookie Jaden Reed, 1 to Melton. They didn't have their great receivers last night. Were not available. Aaron Jones ran 20 times for $120. Jordan Love also ran for a touchdown. But you look at his stats this season. 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. 63% completion percentage, 93.8 quarterback rating. He has a better touchdown-interception ratio than Favre or Aaron Rodgers did in their rookie season, which is interesting. I saw that this morning. I'll find it for you. Yes, from Dan Orlovsky on Twitter. Touchdown interception first season as a starter. Jordan Love, 30-11. Rodgers, 28-13. And Brett Favre, 18-13. Jordan Love obviously has 1 game to go. 1 more game to win, make the playoffs. I don't think that'll be an easy game because the Bears are going to fight hard. They know they're the number 1 pick. Justin Fields could be his last game as a Bears quarterback. That'll be a fun game next weekend. But it's Week 18, the finale next weekend. 2 games on Saturday, both on the mothership. Steelers-Ravens, 5:30, 9:15, Texans-Colts. In the afternoon, you get NFC South, AFC South, and AFC East games. You get like Cowboys, Eagles in the afternoon, Bears, Packers. And the nightcap is Bills, Dolphins in Miami for all the marbles for that 2 seed in the AFC. So interesting weekend for sure in the NFL with only 1 more to go before we get to the playoffs. Ugh, sad truth. Let's see, where do I want to go next? I was going to talk World Juniors next. Let's go to the NHL. Because the Toronto Maple Leafs are 1-5-1 in their last 6, if you didn't know. It's 1-4-1. It's not a good number, whatever it is. I saw it the other day. Maybe it's 1-4-1 the last 6. Yeah, they definitely have lost an overtime game. Yeah, they lost to Columbus in overtime, so they definitely have lost an overtime game because they love to do that. But they're not playing great hockey, is my point. Their goaltending has been putrid. They're starting a healthy scratch, guys. David Camp was a healthy scratch on Saturday night, shaking things up. Sheldon Keefe says we're not going to let things go anymore. We're going to hold people accountable. Love to hear that, Coach. And yet Friday night was kind of a breaking point where Toronto's playing Columbus, and Columbus is terrible. And yet Columbus down a couple goals, beats Toronto on home ice 6-5 in overtime. The 3-on-3 gimmick, if you prefer. And Samsanov gives up another 6 goals. He gave up 5 or more goals in 3 straight starts. And really, it felt like Sheldon Keefe went to the media and said, yeah, we can't have this anymore. The Maple Leafs were preparing for a trip out to California. They will play the Los Angeles Kings tomorrow night. They'll play, I believe it's Anaheim Wednesday, and then they're in San Jose on Saturday. Used to be a tough trip. It's really not anymore, other than that Los Angeles Kings stop. But playing Anaheim, playing San Jose, not exactly tough opponents. But I think it's the right time to send Ilya Samsonov down to the minors. And I thought they maybe would send him on a conditioning stint. I thought they might just come up with an injury, but no. Yesterday, the Leafs put Ilya Samsonov on waivers, where he could have been claimed by any other team in the league, and it's just an outright assignment to the American Hockey League, like the Oilers did with Jack Campbell back in November. Samsonov's gone. It's going to be Martin Jones and Dennis Hildeby, who is all of a sudden getting lots of praise because Samsonov sucks. This guy has to be great. He's recalled this morning. He'll be joining the Leafs on that road trip, and he'll be the backup goalie, as it were, until Joseph Woll is back from his injury, but he has not started skating yet. So it doesn't sound like Joseph Woll is going to be back anytime soon. So it's Martin Jones and Hildeby for the time being for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This was the correct decision. Samsonov was a disaster. He couldn't make a save. He wasn't dialed in. And it was a necessary thing to do for him and for the team. No confidence. You need to go out there, at least believe that you can win a game. And I don't think that the Leafs players believe that they could with Samsonov in the net. Now, while all that is true, they're losing games with Martin Jones in the net. They lost to Ottawa Senators. They lost to Columbus Blue Jackets. They lost to Carolina on Saturday. And they're not playing great defensive hockey. I think Morgan Rielly's had a great start to the season. You're seeing his game regress a little bit. He's making bad decisions with the puck. He's turning the puck over in the neutral zone. This, that, and the third. John Tavares has had 12 games this season without a point. He kind of looks slower. He's kind of skating in the mud right now. It's puzzling to me because I didn't see this from Toronto this year. To me, they should win the Eastern Conference. They should be the President's Trophy. Maybe they still will be, but I find that hard to believe with Martin Jones and Dennis Hildeby over the next little bit and the way that they defend. But I'll come back to this point. Mediocre goaltending gives you mediocre results, and I've always believed that. Unless you have a defense core that can overcome a mediocre goaltending. Vegas won in large part last year because they had the best defense in the NHL. Better than anybody else. Big, strong guys who blocked shots, eliminated chances, got in the slot, so they tried to remove scoring chances, which made Aiden Hill, Logan Thompson, Laurent Brossoit, whoever it might be, their job easier. And now you're looking around, you're going, well, let's look at Toronto. Morgan Rielly. Everybody loves Morgan, including me. He's great. Is he a number one defenseman? No. Will he ever be a number one defenseman? No. And that's not me being harsh. That's just the truth of the situation. TJ Brody was a rumored guy to be bought out last summer. So clearly the team doesn't think that highly of him, let alone maybe his peers. So TJ Brody, is he a great defenseman? He's good. He's fine. He's fine. You keep going. Timothy Liljegren, when he returned last week, this was something else. Timothy Liljegren was normally like, oh God, Timothy Liljegren's in the lineup. He returns from injury, and it's as if he's the Messiah. It's like Christmas Day for Christians. Oh my God, Jesus, he's here. Let's praise him. He's a guy who's a middling defenseman who doesn't bring a whole. He's kind of a tweener. Is he an offensive guy? Is he a defensive guy? Can he keep this? Move the puck well? Okay, he's fine. Mark Giordano, everybody loves Gio. Heart and soul, block shots, love him. He's 40. He's coming off an injury, and he was playing a ton of minutes before his injury. So expecting Mark Giordano to be a top 4 defenseman is malpractice, and it's stupid. And if the organization expected that this year, then shame on them. But is he still valuable? Of course. He's fantastic, and he played 17 minutes on Saturday, but they lost the game playing 17 minutes, so again. But let's keep going. Samad Benoit, I like him. Big, physical defenseman. He's at 5 or 6, right? No debate there. The rest of the defense, Liljegren, Domi, McCabe. McCabe. Who is Jake McCabe? Like, who is he as a player? Not to mention, Morgan Rielly played 25 minutes on Saturday. That's too many. Too many minutes. He's not a 25 minutes a game defenseman. He just isn't. John Tavares played 20 minutes. That's too much. Austin Matthews played 22. Mitch Marner played 23. For all the old heads out there, all those guys had a plus-minus in the minus on Saturday. My point here is they might trade for a Jake Allen in the coming weeks, or they might try to make a move with the Calgary Flames to get Dustin Wolf or get Dan Vladar as a stopgap goalie before Joseph Woll returns. But Joseph Woll is an injury-prone goaltender. Llya Samsanov's in the minors right now because his confidence is so shook. Dennis Hildeby is an unknown. Martin Jones is a veteran. With this defense core and any of those goalies I just named, they are not winning a Stanley Cup. They can have regular season success. They can cruise to a playoff spot. They are not winning anything. Even while the Eastern Conference is not full of juggernauts, which I don't think it is. And you're seeing Philly and Washington and Pittsburgh hang around. I don't believe Toronto would beat Florida with its defense core, and I do not believe that the Toronto Maple Leafs, despite the flaws of the Boston Bruins, can defeat the Bruins with this defense core. Because Swayman or Ullmark are better than any of the Leafs goaltenders, and I think Boston's defense is far superior. Goal scoring would be there. They have the best goal scorer in the world in Austin Matthews. I don't think this team is that far away from being a true contender. And I don't think this is me being hard on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I just want to give you guys the straight facts. You're not winning anything. That defense will get eaten the fuck alive by the Florida Panthers. Florida's kind of middling their way through the regular season. They go through their ups and downs. Matthew Tkachuk's not having a good season. Okay, well, they're still playing good hockey, whatever. When they're so physical and they're mean, and I like their team. And Bobrovsky is good. We saw last year, he gets to the playoffs, he flips a switch, becomes an even better goaltender. The problem, too, for the Maple Leafs is you got to go, well, we only have so much cap room. You need defensemen, so you can't really trade for a goalie. Unless it's a cheap option. But if it's Jake Allen or Samuel Montembeau or Dustin Wolf, what are you willing to part with to get that player? And is it worth going to get that goaltender if Joseph Woll is your guy anyway? And if you possibly believe llya Samsanov could return to the NHL this season, then is it worth that risk? Is it worth going at a goaltender, parting with assets that you might need to land a defenseman in a month or so? If you want to be creative with it, before it was like, okay, trade for Zadorov and Chris Tanev with Calgary. And Calgary's still in the mix, but again, I think GMs are realistic to a point. Calgary right now is 4 points out of a wild card spot, but Arizona does have a game in hand. Arizona's a better team than Calgary. And I don't think Calgary's better than Minnesota, and I don't think Calgary's better than Edmonton Oilers. And the Predators are still hanging in there. So I think Calgary, they're under 500 after 36 games, 15, 16, and 5. I think they know who they are. If I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs, if I'm Brad Treliving, he knows Calgary well. I'd call up Craig Conroy, and I want Tanev and I want Dustin Wolf in the same deal, and I want it today. We're not kicking the can down the road. I need help right now. Lagesson and Benoit have been great stopgaps. Connor Timmins, non-NHL defenseman, he needs to go. But I want Chris Tanev on expiring, and Dustin Wolf, who's been back-to-back years as the MVP in the American Hockey League. I want them both on my roster today. And I think if I'm Conroy, I'm looking around, and I don't think Tanev and Wolf are going to cost you a crazy amount because you have one goalie who's an American leaguer and Tanev who's on an expiring. Second round pick on a prospect, potentially. That's probably what you're looking at. Second rounder that can become a first rounder, but then maybe you could put some caveats on it. It becomes a first round pick if Toronto does so well in the playoffs. Get some insurance if you're Craig Conroy. The prospect, it would be, it's interesting. I don't think the Maple Leafs want to part with Fraser Minten or Easton Cowan because I think they view them as the future of their organization. But if you're Calgary, you don't give a shit about that. You want a good player. And you're giving up two roster guys that are helping you right now. And you're, in essence, giving up on your season. But they're not going to trade Matthew Nyes. Topi Niemela is an interesting defenseman. Fraser Minten, Ronnie Hervinen. Would Nick Robertson get it done for Calgary? Is there enough intrigue there they've seen from him that maybe you can give a second rounder that could flip into a first with, if the season goes well, Nick Robertson and conditional seventh. That could be enough because Calgary has not shown any respect to Dustin Wolf because, again, he's in the American League this year because they have Dan Vladar and Markstrom signed long-term. So say, hey, we'd like to take a chance at Dustin Wolf. We want to give him some reps in the NHL, and we view Chris Tanev. We're not going to make the playoffs. We're going to be a playoff team. We want Chris Tanev. Shut down defenseman. He can play with, I think it'd be smart for him to play with Morgan Rielly, personally. And I don't think they'll do it because I think he'd help other guys more. But I think they need at least two defensemen before the end of the trade deadline. At least. 3 would be preferred. But 2 defensemen and a guy down the middle is kind of my checklist for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if you can get a goalie in there, great. I wouldn't spend the farm to get a goaltender that's a patchwork guy. And I don't see them having enough assets or be willing to get rid of assets to bring in a lockdown number one goaltender, like say Markstrom in Calgary. I don't think they're going to make that deal because they don't want to retain Sal. They don't want him for a number of years where they have to pay guys moving forward like Bill Nylander, who still doesn't have a contract entering the 2024-2025 season. But could you get Tanev and Wolf? Wolf can go to the American League without passing through waivers. So that's an advantage. Then you'd have Samsonov, you'd have Woll, Martin Jones, and Dustin Wolf as all potential starting options, and you can try them all. Everybody could get starts, test them out, and say who's the best option. I think it's easy to say that it's Joseph Woll right now, but again, he could get injured 2 more times this year. He gets injured all the time. Things just seem to happen to him. I'd want insurance come playoff time. But that's just a pitch for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think they're winning anything with that defense. And Dennis Hildeby is a great story, and I'm sure we'll read an article about him, and he came from somewhere. I probably won't read it, but I'm sure you guys will read it, and it's a great story, and this, that. My mom will text me, and it'll be great, a couple tears, and this, that, and whatever. But I'd rather have somebody that can help me than some good story. Good story doesn't really get you anywhere. The great stories don't mean anything until something happens. Then it becomes a great story. Michael Orr is a great story with the Chewy family because he went to Ole Miss and then went to the NFL and won a Super Bowl. And now they're stealing all his money. So it's not such a great story anymore, but you get my point. Right down the road from Toronto, Ottawa Senators, big announcement yesterday. I love this. Senators named Steve Staios the president of hockey operations, which he already was, and the general manager, which he wasn't, but I predicted on this show because it's so easy to do this. Kyle Dubas is doing this in Pittsburgh, where you're the president, but you don't name a GM, but you're just the GM. So now Steve Staios is the president and the GM. So he's got full authority to whatever the hell he wants. Doesn't need a helper. But they also named Ryan Bowness associate GM, which I don't know what that means. Kind of sounds like Dwight Schrute, Michael Scott, like assistant to the regional manager. Does he go get Steve Staios coffee, or do you go do the dry cleaning, or he just does the work that Steve Staios doesn't want to do, I guess? Associate GM, like associate trailer park supervisor, like Randy and Trailer Park Boys. I don't know. It's associate general manager. And Steve Staios got the power. That's what we need to know. And Ryan Bowness, son of Rick Bowness, is associate GM, and he was working in the American League with Belleville. So he's been with the organization for a hot minute. And this came in, Dave Poulin, who was obviously working with TSN, calling games. He's great. One of the best analysts in the game right now because he's truthful, doesn't sugarcoat it, doesn't have favorite teams. You can't tell his bias, after just hearing him speak for 5 seconds. He has joined the Senators as the VP of Hockey Operations. He previously worked with the Maple Leafs. In a similar role, he worked with the American League team, so now he is also part of the Senators management core. It's interesting. They've won a few games. They've had a little bit of success. They crushed the Sabres last night. I think Steve Staios is a smart guy. Clearly, Michael Andlauer believes in him. Full go. They need to do some work. They know that. I think it's easy for any president just to go, I know what I want this team to look like. I don't need a GM to disagree with me. So if I want to do something, I'm just going to do it. I don't want clearance. Just if the owner likes me, he agrees, I'm going to pull the trigger, and I can respect that. Because I think in any job, you don't want somebody below you or, telling you, no, you can't do it, or don't do this, or this sounds better. We all have egos. We all think we're right. And, Steve, I think he's going to have to make changes. Steve Stais will have to pick a new head coach. Jacques Martin's not going to be doing this forever. Likely will coach out the year, but we'll see. As I said last week, I don't think Daniel Alfredson is the right hire. I hope they don't do that. I think that would be a mistake. But that's another story for another day. But what I'll say for the Senators is they have stability. They have an owner. They have their president. They have a GM, VP Hockey, associate GM, wherever the hell that is. They have stability. They have their management core. Once they hire their head coach, they will have all that locked in, and they have stability. Because for a long time, when Eugene Melnyk died and they're trying to sell the team and it took fucking forever, they didn't have anything. Are they gonna spend this year? Do they have the money? What's happening? You didn't know. And now they have Andlauer, who's the face, Stais, who's running the hockey ops, and they can go from there. So that's the start of something. Because they do have young talent, and they have won a few games in a row here. But as I said before, this season's done. This is about building towards the future and getting the Ottawa Senators back into the playoffs and also building them a new rink. Building them a new arena, not in Canada, with the tumbleweeds and the silos. Winnipeg Jets won 2 games against the Minnesota Wild over the weekend. Both impressive wins, low scoring, tough physical games, multiple fights in both games. Those two teams do not like one another. To me, they're one of the most consistent teams in the league. 35 games in, they have 48 points. Rangers are first in that category with 51. They have 25 wins, which is incredible. But Winnipeg with 48, 22, 9-4. Same record as the Dallas Stars in their own division, who were in a conference final last year. I didn't see that coming. They haven't had Kyle Connor in weeks, and they continue to win games. Connor Hellebuck's been very good. Laurent Brossoit has been really good in relief. But you look at their team, it's just, you go through it and go, the player's a decent little player, and they don't have, people don't jump off the page. I'll say that about them. 9-19, 234 goals against for Hellebuck. You look at their leading point getters. Mark Scheifele's got 36 and 35 games, so a point per game guy. You have Morrissey with 30 and 35. Kyle Connor, 28 and 26. Ehlers, 26 and 35. Perfetti, 23 and 35. Niederreiter's been good, 22 and 35. They just find production from guys. Gabe Vilardi, when healthy, has been very productive for them. But good goaltending. They can play in low-scoring games. They defend well. They seem to have more of a buy-in from their whole team and just playing a style, playing gritty. Rick Bowness back on the bench. That certainly helps. But they played 2 games less than the Vegas Golden Knights. There'll be 3 after today, and they have 1 fewer point. And they have the same number of wins. 1 fewer win than the Vancouver Canucks, who have also been fantastic to start the year. 1 fewer point than Colorado, and Colorado's played 37 games to their 35. That Central Division is, Central and Pacific, both really tough. So those teams are good. They play hard. Los Angeles has 3 games hands on Canucks. 4 games, it'll be 5 after today on Vegas, with many, only 4 points back of both. So LA is a dangerous team. Out west, there are some heavy hitters. And you got Vegas and Seattle today in the outdoor game. So that should be fun. Sounds like Joey Decord's going to go for Seattle. Logan Thompson's expected goalie for the Vegas Golden Knights. First outdoor game in Seattle, NHL Winter Classic. Should be fun this afternoon. See, before we wrap today, quick news, just news and notes on the World Juniors. Canada obviously lost to Sweden on Friday. That's old news now. They defeated Germany yesterday. Wasn't an impressive win. I didn't find they played all that well. My thoughts, Carson Repkov, who was the 13th forward to start the tournament, needs to get more minutes. Has to get more minutes. He's been great. Macklin Celebrini, he was great yesterday. I think he's been their best. Again, he's their best player. Period. Losing Matthew Savoie potentially for the tournament would be devastating. They obviously Geeky left the game in the first 10 seconds just after he got ejected for a bullshit call. But Rousseau he can make any save, but he needs to see it. He's small goalie. If he's getting screened, he had 3 goals allowed in the tournament that were just off screens. And on the power play, that's what kills Canada. You need to box out better, be in better situations. To me, they just don't generate a whole lot of high-scoring opportunities. They're not that dangerous. They need to be more physical. They need to be mean, get in the corners, get some dirty goals. That's how they're going to advance and beat teams in this tournament. They didn't do that enough against Sweden. Sweden was able to play their game, defend really well, which when Sweden's playing at their best, they have the best defense in the tournament, if you ask me. You look at Lindstein, Elias Pettersson, Axine Sandin-Pellikka. They didn't come to play yesterday. The Finns did, and the Finns ultimately beat them in the gimmick. But I think Sweden will be better when they play Switzerland tomorrow and as they get into the medal round on home ice. But the way I've watched so far, I'd be surprised if Canada won a gold medal. And while I don't think the U.S. and Sweden are as good as maybe I thought, or the people thought going into the tournament, I don't think Canada has impressed me either. Predictions for tomorrow's game: Finland, Slovakia. 2 versus 3. Finland's gotten better because they had such a slow start. They're finding ways to produce. Guys are starting to kind of pop up a bit, show themselves. Slovakia was great. They won their first year, and they got crushed 10-2 against the United States yesterday. Finland is a team that can score goals if they want to. Holttunen, Jani Newman, another guy. Hemaho is good for the Finns. You're looking at Slovakia. I mean, Petrovsky's been fantastic throughout. Repsik's been phenomenal throughout the tournament. Philip Meshar, their top guys. You know who they are. They need to produce. They need Adam Gahan to be better in between the pipes. I think Finland wants to play the game they did yesterday, be physical on that Slovakian defense. While Finland has not been impressive so far and they've had an up and down tournament, I think they beat Slovakia in an upset tomorrow. Second game, Canada, Czechia. This is a rematch of last year's gold medal game. Czechia had a gimmick loss to the United States where they fought hard in that game. They beat the Swiss yesterday, so they've had a couple wins in a row. They're 2-1-1 in the tournament. Yuri Kulich, Edward Saleh, those are the guys to look out for. Adam Jurček, good on the back end. I expect a physical game. Czechia will want to win this to rebound from last year. But I think Canada does ultimately win. Say a 5-2 game for Canada tomorrow. Geeky has Geeky has 2 points tomorrow. He'll be revved up after being ejected from the game. Canada beats Czechia. United States, Latvia, this one shouldn't be close. Credit to Latvia for beating Germany, avoiding relegation again, which is their big thing going into the tournament. So now Germany has to play Norway in relegation, which I don't think will be that easy, because Norway's a tough out. But US just has so much firepower when they want to play. McGroarty had a hat trick yesterday. They've Cutter Gauthier, who's piling up points. Gavin Brindley. United States will defeat Latvia easily. I think we'll see United States, Canada in the semifinal. Then Sweden, Switzerland. Crowd will be phenomenal for Sweden. I think Switzerland will hang in there. They're kind of like a gnat. They know how to play. They know how to stick around. But I'm going to say Sweden wins that game 5-6-2. They'll score a few in the third period to kind of blow that game a little wide open. So Sweden, Finland, who've already played in a semifinal, Canada, United States. We'll recap them tomorrow because they begin at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, the World Junior Hockey Championships. And then you got the college football playoffs tonight. Alabama, Michigan in the first game. Let me just go to FanDuel real quick here on the updated lines. So Alabama, Michigan. Michigan's a 2.5-point favorite. Alabama's got their second worst defense in the Nick Saban era. Michigan's great running the football. I don't trust J.J. McCarthy throwing the ball through the air. Alabama wins these games. Michigan doesn't. Michigan's lost their last 6 bowl games. They've lost in the playoffs the last 2 times that they've been there. I like Alabama to pull off the upset. I'm taking Alabama plus the points. Alabama plus 2.5. Texas, Washington. Washington an undefeated, and yet they're an underdog in this game. Texas can score with anybody. Great receivers. They can run the football. Quinn Ewers. I love Washington. Michael Penix is a stud. Rome Odunze, McMillan, Polk. They got those 3 wide receivers can all do it all. Then you have Adonai Mitchell for Texas, who was formerly at Georgia. He's looking to get to his 3rd straight national championship game with 2 different programs. I like Texas to win this game. Washington's been an underdog the whole year. They've escaped games where you thought they were going to lose. They remain undefeated, but I think Texas, 2 one-loss teams will meet in the national championship next Monday in Houston. So Texas minus 3.5 is the pick. Alabama plus 2.5 is the pick. We'll see how those play out today. That's it for today's show. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your New Year's Day. We'll be back with you tomorrow, January 2nd, to recap all the crazy things happening in the world of sports. Until then, take care. Happy New Year. This is To The Point.